This meeting is being recorded.
I thought it was interesting. A little. This is being recorded. Okay. This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here on April the 26th, 2022. And folks, not only do I have a comic legend on the show, but I discovered he's from my vicinity. And that is one thing that we're going to talk about to start us off. You all know him as the Unknown Comic, who wears the paper bag over his head. But now he's showing himself. You know, if Janet Jackson can have a wardrobe malfunction, he could have a baghead malfunction. You know, it goes like that. If I could show this face, he could show his face. Folks, I give you the awesomely talented, very funny Murray Langston, the Unknown Comic. How do you do, Murray? How do you do, Murray?
Hi, I'm not here right now, but if you leave your name and number at the sound of the tone, I'll get back to you. Here comes the tone now. You thought there was like a malfunction there for a second, didn't you?
Well, you know what?
Anyway,
I listen. I heard your answering machine, and it sounds to me like you're waiting for people to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, mostly bill collectors. No, it's I cannot complain, young man. I'm very, very lucky guy or woman, depends what I wear, but we don't need to go there right now, do we?
Well, you know, I had Bobby Logan on not too long ago, and he spoke very highly of you.
Well, he smokes a lot of pot. That's why he spoke highly of me. Yes.
Well, I had him on here, and he suggested.
Why didn't you have him on it? Yeah. Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
were
Yeah, I've known Bobby 100 years. We've known each other, almost 100 years. Yeah. We did a movie together many, many years ago.
I think you did more than one movie together. I think
we did a couple.
I think we were in a debate who he was associated with more, you or Linda Blair.
Oh, yeah. Well, Linda Blair, he met through me. Linda Blair has been my best friend, one of my best friends for about 50 years. Yeah, I've known her since she was about 13. Yeah, and
I want to see. I want to see the Unknown Comic versus Reagan from The Exorcist. I want to see that movie.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah. The picture I have a picture of me, the Unknown Comic, sitting on the lap of Geraldine. You know, remember Flip Wilson, Geraldine? Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's in my book. You know, Journey Through the Unknown. Did you know I wrote a book?
No, I did not, but I did listen to your stand-up comic last night, and I got to say, you're really, really, really funny.
Yeah, I don't remember. You know, I've been out of the business for many, many years, almost 20 years or so, and except for the sporadic gig. But then I realized nobody knew I retired, so I thought, well, I'm going to come back and try it again a little bit and let people know that I'm ready for retirement now.
Bobby Logan,
you know, so
I don't think Bobby Logan sees you as retired.
Well, no, because I'm always doing other things. You know, I've always been involved. I've done, you know, movies, and I've done plays. I just did a couple of plays, and I'm working on another project now for a show in Vegas. So I'm always doing something. But the stand-up act, I sort of retired many, many years ago, except for occasionally. But I did get back and did about 4 or 5 gigs in the last couple of months, just to see if I could still do it, and it was a blast. So, because I'm meeting with some people, we're talking about doing a resurgence of the Unknown Comic for a Netflix special. So that's why I'm getting back out and jumping around on stage and making a fool of myself for fun, which is always great. Yeah.
Well, you know what? One thing we got to talk about, and this blew my mind whenever you responded to my text and you said that, and I looked it up. You're from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
I was born in Dartmouth, but I spent I spent many years in Bathurst, New Brunswick.
Yeah.
I owned a beach house there right on the water for like about 15, 18 years, and sold it a few years ago. So it gave me reason to go there because that's where my I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on, I think I'm allergic.
Go
Clean
ahead.
that. Okay, no, I'm okay now. Yeah, so I got a beach house many years ago because that's where my family lived, and so I would go there every year. I'd take my daughters, and every year we'd hop the plane, go to Montreal, take a train from Montreal up to Bathurst, and party for several weeks during the summer. Every year we did that, and then my daughter misses it, but since my parents passed a few years ago, there was no real reason to head down there anymore as much as we used to. So I got rid of the beach house. But yeah, so I kept my Canadian ties in that respect. But I left Canada when I was 17 and crossed the border and joined the military. So I spent 4 years in the U.S. military. But I actually spent almost a year in the Canadian military prior to going crossing the border. I was in the Canadian Guards, the big fur hats and stuff like that. And but I got discharged for flat feet of all things because I couldn't accommodate those long hikes with a 50-pound backpack on. So they let me go, and I said, well, I'll cross the border and join the American Navy, and they took me because they'll take just about anybody at that time. But when I went across the border, that was when everybody was coming to Canada too. People that didn't want to go to Vietnam. So even the recruiters, when I crossed the border to try to join up, thought I was a complete idiot. And one of them said, you should put a bag over your head, and that stuck with me many years later. But yeah, so that's how I ended up going to the States was spending 4 years. So I'm a vet here,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool. Yeah, and a vet of Canada. Yeah, so
Well, we
been in the
appreciate
Army
your
in Canada
service.
and the Navy.
Yeah.
Well, I broke a nail twice, so it wasn't pleasant. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever been here to Fredericton?
I think I was there for some sort of comedy festival many years ago, and I don't
Yeah.
remember though. Yeah, I traveled so much during the course of when I was doing stand up, that I don't remember all the places because I'm getting old now and
Well,
just
nobody
no. But I've
knows
seen.
where New Brunswick is. Like, it's amazing how many times I interview people from California and they're
Yeah,
like, I thought you were 3
New
hours ahead. Nope,
Brunswick.
4.
Yeah, it's an extra hour. Yeah. And well,
Yeah.
my sister lived in Newfoundland for a while, so that's even further. Yeah, and still has a home there. Yeah. So, but yeah, you love. But being from Dartmouth, also Anne Murray is from Dartmouth too, and I've got to know her over the course of the years, and we talk about being from the same area, but she keeps a place mainly in Toronto,
I
which
love
is where her main.
Toronto. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
Toronto. Have you met the
I
Trailer Park Boys?
I've seen the shows. Very, very funny. Yeah. But I lived in Toronto in my early years. I still remember the streets. I lived on Jarvis. I lived on Gladstone
Uh-huh.
Avenue in Toronto. Yeah, in my early years. But then we went to Montreal, and then I crossed the border and joined the military and ended up being in the States. But I stayed Canadian till about 5, 6 years ago. I was always Canadian then. But when I got out of the military, you could only be one or the other. You couldn't be both. But now, as of I guess about a dozen years ago, you can have both citizenship. So I ended up becoming an American, finally a U.S. citizen because I have two kids here, born here. So I figured may as well, and so I'm a dual citizenship now. But I'm still
How,
Canadian, still Quebec.
there you go. How old were your daughters before you let them see you with the bag off?
Uh, But my, my daughters, they still don't understand how I made a living with a bag on my head for years. But uh, no, my one daughter, my older daughter, she's in the music business, doing very well. She was Britney Spears' background singer on several of her albums, and her name is on a lot of Britney Spears records. Maya Marie. And my 23-year-old has Down syndrome, and she's my jewel. She's she's the best thing that ever happened to me. So it's great. So we have a great relationship. I have a great relationship with both my girls, and it's and my daughter loves Young comic. My younger girl too. She loves Young comic, and she's put the bag on her head. I've took it. The last show I did was in Vegas. She came out, surprised me. I didn't even know. She found a bag in my dressing room and ran on stage while I was doing my act. It was very, very funny. Yeah, it was, and then she started jumping around. She's real cool. Yeah. But those were, yeah, yeah. So, but like I said, that was a fun period of my life. But it was just one of the things I've done. Done a lot of things during as I reflect back. I did over 800 TV shows during my course of my career, and about 15, 20 movies and stuff like that. So I've had a really good time and still having a great time.
Well, you know what? I love the physical part of you when you're just moving about with, and you're managed to maintain the bag over your head. But I like stuff like where you make water squirt out and say that you're sweating, or you're taking your tongue and sticking it out to the eye holes to look back and forth as if it was eyes. Stuff like that. I don't know where
Yeah,
you
a
come up
lot
with
of
it.
physical stuff. Well, the unknown comic was very physical because if you're, but when I do my show, I do over an hour show, and only about a dozen to 15 minutes is with the bag on. Most of the show is without the bag, and that's where I really have more fun. It's just
Mhm.
because the thing with the unknown comic, it's very energetic, and you need to be energetic because you don't have. As a stand-up comic, you can use your face to push jokes over with certain looks, certain takes, but the unknown comic doesn't have that luxury. So that's why most of the jokes I would try to push over with high energy and with using my body as a force, chopping around, and it was fun. I didn't realize because like I just did a show like last Friday and it was very energetic of the unknown comic. Then I can relax after I take the bag off. But it's a blast. It's amazing. People still relate to that character though. It's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I know this is probably a question you get a lot, but for those not familiar, where did you come up with the idea of using the bag to begin with? Because it's actually a brilliant idea. I was thinking that maybe you didn't want to be recognized or something, or
Well, I
what?
had a bad complexion and it was cheaper than Clearasil. That's
Okay.
what really happened. Yeah. No, what you just stated was exactly what happened, not wanting to be recognized. Back in the, I'd been on, before I created the Endo Comic, I had been on the Sonny and Cher show for 4
Hmm.
years. I did a series with Bobby Vinton. I actually shot a lot of shows in Canada. Did a series with Wolfman Jack in
Oh
Vancouver.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I did 24 episodes with him. I did a lot of shows in Canada, and also because of being Canadian back in those days. But what I did is so I did 4 years on the Sunny Share show, and I did a series of Lola Falana, and what happened is I decided to buy a nightclub, and I bought a nightclub and sort of specialized in bankruptcy and became very successful that way. No, but I lost my butt after about 2 years with this club because during the time I had my club, I spent a lot of time, working, and so I had to leave the club a lot too. So the club lost its ass. But I had a lot of people were discovered there. People like
Yep.
David Letterman started at my club. Michael Keaton was actually discovered at my club. His real name was Michael Douglas when he worked at my place, and he had to change it for obvious reasons of the other actor being Michael. Deborah
Deborah
Winger, the
Winger. Yep.
famous actress, is one of my waitresses. Gallagher started at my club when he first started, when he came from Florida. Just a lot of people started my club, but uh, but what happened is I didn't know what I was doing, and I just gave everything away. So within 2 years, all the money I made off those shows, I lost in the club and was broke again. And this show called the Gong Show had already been on the air about 6 months. And what I found out is that if you're in the union, they had to pay you on the Gong Show whether you won or lost. It was like 250 or something like that. And so to me, it was just a quick way to make 250. But I didn't want any of my friends to see me on this Gong show because it was sort of ridiculous. Because I'd been on all these TV shows, so I came up with the well, I'll just put a bag on my head and tell a couple of jokes. And what happened is I insulted Chuck Barris, the host. I came out and I said, "Hey, Chucky, you and your wife ever make love in a shower?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, you should. She loves it." And the audience loved that joke. And Chuck came running back to me after the show and said, "You got to come back." And that was great. And insult me again. He liked the idea that I would insult him or do some ridiculous shtick because it gave him a bunch of vulnerability. And so that's what I did. So I ended up doing, I only meant to do one, and ended up doing 150 Gong shows at 250. That's over $1,000 right there, I think. But and then I parlayed it. Obviously, after about a year, I parlayed it into a nightclub act. And next thing I knew, I was making like $5,000 a week in Las Vegas as the unknown comic in the lounge there, and it just went from there. And I became and so I worked Vegas. I was one of the first comics to work. But I actually was the first comic to ever put three comics on the same stage in Vegas. I have the write up somewhere. I think it was at the Landmark Hotel, and so I ended up putting three comics together. Now they have comedy clubs all over the place. Where in Vegas too, whether it's the Comedy Store or the Laugh Stop, where they put three comics on a bill. But I was the first one to do that with Elaine Boozler and Willie Tyler and Lester. I remember those years. But anyway, so that's how the Unknown Comic, and that so I got to ride that wave for many years of the Unknown Comic, and it was very very cool. Uh, the truth is, I didn't really do stand up when I created the Unknown Comic. I when I went to LA, I didn't. I never thought I was never interested in stand up. I thought it was way too difficult for me to ever even attempt, to be honest with you. But I wanted to be a comedy actor. I was into Jerry Lewis thing. I wanted to get into comedy acting, and I did do that for many years. As I mentioned, I became a comedy actor on all these TV shows. But they sort of fizzled out. And then when the Unknown Comic came about, I had to really struggle in the beginning because I was hanging out at the Comedy Store trying to figure out. In fact, the history of the Comedy Store. You've heard of the Comedy
Yep.
Store in LA?
Hmm.
Yeah, well, I was there the day that opened. My history goes way back with that place. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary, and I was supposed to head down there, but I couldn't make
Oh,
it because I had my daughter with me.
I'm about to have my 50th anniversary in July.
Oh, really? Well, happy
Yep.
birthday. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna be seven. I'm gonna be 78 in June, so I'll beat you.
I
So,
thought you were
but
39.
I was 39, and I would be 78, but I was sick for 42 years. So,
Oh,
no, 39. Not Jack Benny. That was Jack Benny's shtick. Yeah. No, I'll be 78, but yeah. So, but I still feel like a little puppy. So I'm having a great time.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. This year marks the 20th anniversary. I can't believe, I don't know where the time went, but because I saw this film in the theater, but it marks the 20th anniversary this year for Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Um,
Is it really that long ago?
yeah, I can't
Wow.
believe it.
And,
I really
and you know where they
loved
shot
that
that
film.
movie?
Huh?
Huh? You know where
What?
they shot that film? In
Where?
Montreal. Montreal. That
Montreal.
was shot in Montreal. Yeah, you wouldn't expect that. But that was George Clooney's first directing film also. And
Hmm.
I had a big fight with them when they filmed that movie because I didn't know they were filming it, that they'd got it off the ground. And I got a call one day here and from some young actor in Canada who said, "Yeah, they cast me to play the unknown comic in this movie." And I went, "What?" And he said, "Yeah. So can you give me some advice on the play the part?" And I don't remember what I told him, but my brain was going, "Now, why are they hiring somebody to play me when I'm available?" Which didn't make sense to me since the character has a bag over his head.
Yep.
But I found out subsequently that the reason was they were trying to save money, and they can hire people in LA for which they did for like $300 or $400 for a day, where they had to pay me a lot of money and fly me out there and that. So they were trying to screw me out of a part. So So I got a hold of, but so I talked to my attorney, and he said they can't use the unknown comic without your permission because it's an established. See, the thing about movies is they could use Murray Langston. Somebody could play me, just like people can play Frank Sinatra, and he can't do anything about it if you're a public figure. But the unknown comic is like Batman; it's a created character, and that couldn't be used. I found out, so I got a hold of George Clooney and the production people. I said I didn't want them to use the unknown comic in the movie, and within hours, I got a phone call from George Clooney and apologizing and saying that his producer, it was his first record and they're trying to save money. He admitted the truth, and so but he was great. He ended up paying me a lot of money and flying me out there and putting me up in a first class hotel and treating me great. He turned out to be a fabulous guy, and he used me in the movie because they had already filmed that scene with the unknown comic, which I didn't know, but at that time, but they used me, and I'm in the movie without the bag. I forget what scene, and he used me in the scene. He just put me in the movie and took really good care of me. So that turned out to be a really good thing.
Hmm.
But for me, yeah, in
I
Confessions,
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie a lot, and
it was a dark movie.
yeah,
Dark.
Clooney did a great job directing. I thought it was a great different performance out of Julia Roberts. You had Drew Barrymore, and of course Sam Rockwell playing Chuck Barris.
He
Off the Wall was
was
terrific.
he was brilliant. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But here's my question, and I hear back and forth on this. How much of the stuff about Chuck Barris was accurate?
Pretty much nothing. No, Chuck told me exactly what happened. I ended up becoming fairly good friends with Chuck, but he said that when he decided to write his bio, and he didn't think it would be interesting enough. So what the movie is, it's a bit of his real life about how he got into the game show business and people he met. But he thought to, like I said, he thought it would be boring. So he decided to create this fictional character alongside it, where he became an assassin. But it was total BS. None of it was
Okay.
true. Yeah,
Okay.
but that's how smart he was. And then when it did become an item, and people would ask him if anything was true, he would never deny it because that would make it much more interesting. He would say, well, he wouldn't. I'm not allowed to say, or he would make up stories, but he would never fully say that it was true or it wasn't. He just let it ride, but he was a brilliant man in that way. And it led to a huge movie for him. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. But no, he was never an assassin. Yeah, and there's a scene I think of him pulling a gun out and thinking that I'm going. The unknown comic is after him also, and of course that never happened. But yeah, the truth is no, he was not an assassin, and it never happened. But it was very smart of him to write that like that. Yeah.
No, I enjoyed the movie a lot. It was an interesting tone, and it got me kind of looking into all the stuff on the Gong Show and this and that, and of course with Chuck Barris, like you've had a long, long relationship with him, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. And but talk about your relationship with him all these years.
Well, it was very friendly. In other words, I mean, we didn't hang out all the time, stuff like that. But he did the Gong Show movie later. But when he had a penthouse in New York, he actually lived in Trump Towers in New York. And if I ever went to New York, he always told me, let me know and I'll take you out to lunch. And so whenever I would go to New York, we'd get together and take me and go to lunch. And then one time, the Friars did a roast to him, and so I went down there and did the roast with him, hung out with him and his wife Mary. His wife was the same name as my daughter, as a matter of fact. But he was super cool with me, super generous, always the nicest guy. So I really enjoyed getting to know him during all those years. And the interesting thing about Chuck Barris, everybody used to ask me, is he on drugs? Because everybody thought he was like coked up all the time because of his weird type of energy and pulling the hat over his eyes. But the truth is, he was completely anti-drugs and never indulged in them. And you remember Gene the dancing machine? He was
Yeah.
on the show also. The black dude. He was one of the cleaners. And sadly, he died of. He had both of his legs amputated from diabetes, and he
Uh,
was known as the dancing machine. How ironic that turned out to be for him. And he died a couple of years ago. Super, super friendly, nice guy. But he's the one that told me. I asked him if Chuck. He said no. We all did our part, but we had to hide because if he caught any of us, he would have us fired. So no, he did not. He was not a druggie at all, and contrary to what a lot of people thought. But unfortunately and sadly, his daughter became heavy drug use and died from drug overdose, and a very sad way she her life ended too. Uh, yeah. So, but yeah, but otherwise, he was a very smart man and fun to know.
when you met him with for lunch, did you paper bag the lunch?
No, no, I just made sure he picked up the check. You mean take a doggy bag? I didn't take a doggy bag. I always keep one there. Or anyway, yeah.
When you first met him, what was your impression?
Well, when I first met him, it was like I told you earlier. It was on the show, and I did. He was just a very well-known producer already. He had already produced shows, which I'd done, like the dating game. I think I did 3 or 4 of those prior to the Gong Show, and the Newlywed Game, and he had a show called Treasure Hunt, and so
Hmm.
he was a very well-established producer. And like I said, we didn't hang out except at work. We would, go and hang out in the dressing room and BS and stuff like that, or if I went to New York. But he was, you know, just a super cool guy. Yeah. But you know what? I was super cool too. So it was a good match.
Oh, you
It's a
were
good match.
super awesome.
I had a great time. Yeah.
Well, the
But
Gong.
yeah, like I said, in my book, it's called Journey Through the Unknown.
Uh-huh.
My book, and you get it on Amazon. But it details all that stuff about Chuck Barris, and I mean the thing is, I got to hang out with Elvis Presley and party with him all night. I got threatened by Frank Sinatra. I got to hang out. How many people can say they spent Christmas Eve with Lucille Ball? I got to spend Christmas Eve with Lucy when I dated her daughter, Lucy Arnaz. I got to Jim Carrey did his first TV show with me. So many people did their first shows with me. So
Hmm.
it's been a very fun ride, I gotta say, and still continues to be fun.
Well, the Gong Show movie, unfortunately didn't do very well, but Chuck Barris directed this. And talk about like going from a game show or a show of this nature to make what made him want to do this movie.
A lot of it is just he's he just wanted to do something different.
Hmm.
And that's same with me. Like I did stand up, and then I did a little movie called Up Your Alley about homeless people with Bob Logan. As a matter of fact, you might have talked about that. And then
Oh
I did a
yeah.
couple other movies. And I did plays. Yeah. So I think his was just you want to go to the next step, try something different, and that's all it was. He had the opportunity was there. He said, I
Hmm.
think I'll try directing it. Yeah. So and he did, and it might have been better had he let somebody else direct it, but you never know. And maybe the Gong Show just ran out of steam too, as it did on the TV shows. He did the several years of the Gong Show, then
Hmm.
daytime, then they had a nighttime version, then they had a Gong Show specials, and it ran its course. Even though people tried to bring it back many times, it never did have the original spontaneity and the way it was executed by Chuck. It was like, and I think the reason he made it a hit was because he was almost as amateurish as a host as the acts were, because he wasn't a polished host at all, you know. And he just did his thing, unlike because they did first try the first week was with Gary Owens, who was a very slick announcer, and the networks thought he was too slick. But anyway, I think what happened was the success of that show was the uniqueness of Chuck being sort of an amateur host also, and it's sort of that combined with all the amateur acts made that show a success, in
One
my
of the things,
estimation.
one of the funny things about the movie is that he's trying to lead this normal existence, but everybody keeps putting on an act to get his attention to be on the show. And I understand
Oh yeah,
I think it was Shout Factory released the Blu-ray, and I guess they put in some scenes that were deleted, like the two girls doing the popsicles, for example.
yeah.
I guess
That was great. I was there that day. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and it only made one coast because, and then by the time it was supposed to air in the second coast, they took it off the air. So, but it did make the East Coast, I believe. Yeah,
well, I
but
guess it's yeah, I
that
guess
was one
it's
of my favorite.
restored. Yeah. I bet.
Yeah, it was a good, it was a good piece by the girls. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Outside your act, what would you say was the most interesting act that the Gong Show produced? What would you say?
You know, well, as I mentioned, I think Gene was great.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of crazy. It's interesting that nobody. I'm trying to think. Did anybody really make it big from that show that was an act? Do you know? Do you know the history of it? I don't remember. I think there was some singer, but I mean, it had a lot of people. Like Steve Martin was a judge. A lot of people judged it that were famous, or became very famous. But trying to remember, I don't think anybody ever did become famous from those years of the Gong Show. Can you think of anybody?
You?
Can you? Yeah, but I wasn't an act. I was what they call a curtain closer. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, well, in a sense, I was. Yeah, but I didn't come like hugely. I did very well with it, in what I did. But and we'll see. I found this poster at the Pasadena Ice House where I worked 45 years ago for $3 a night, and that's, by the way, where we're gonna probably end up shooting. The place has been closed, but they're getting ready to reopen it. So I may work there again for $3 a night, like 45 years ago. We're gonna film the show, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Coming out of retirement.
Well, what was I could imagine what his reaction was, but I guess notoriously the Gong Show movie was pulled from theaters pretty quickly. Um, was that a surprise
It
to him?
was.
Did he think that like what was his reaction, and did he have well, obviously you would have higher aspirations, but with
To be honest with you, I did not communicate with him, during that period, so I wouldn't have a clue what his reaction was. Yeah,
mm,
yeah, yeah. Obviously, I'm sure he wasn't thrilled because it might
probably
have led
not,
to some.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because the show was a big hit, but obviously some of them don't translate to movies, I guess. But
That's absolutely true. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I want to touch upon some of your other films though, like Skate Town USA. You play the drunk.
Yeah, interestingly enough, just last night at the boat, I was
Uh-huh.
at the boat yesterday, and the guy who directed Skatetown USA, a guy named Bill Levy, he lives right down the street. So he came over, because of what I was going through,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up hanging out the night. But yeah, Bill Levy is the guy who directed Skatetown USA, and believe it or not, he gave Bill uh, uh, I'm just blanking on his name, Patrick Swayze. That was his first movie, Skatetown USA, and he gave Patrick Swayze his first movie. He's responsible. He just saw Patrick Swayze walking down an alley when he was taking a break from casting the movie, and saw him and thought he was real good looking, and a dancer because he had been a ballet dancer apparently, and gave him his first movie role in Skatetown USA, and I played the drunk there. And I got the picture asked another Canadian too, who I don't know, you might be too young to remember, playmate named Dorothy Stratton, who
I
was a
know that.
huge.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it became, well, she got murdered by her husband. They made a movie out of that called Star 80. Well,
Star
she was
80.
also,
Yep. I'm familiar
yeah,
with
well,
that. Yep.
Dorothy Stratton was in that movie, and I had to play a scene where I had to pinch her butt as a drunk in that movie, and I just couldn't get it right. I had to do it over and over again, and we laughed about that because I kept messing up on purpose because I kept wanting to pinch her butt, and she was telling me how her husband was really watching me carefully, because he was there all the time, the one who murdered her. But that's pretty weird how that happened. But yeah, so he gave Dorothy Stratton her first movie role too, and Patrick Swayze in that film Skatetown, USA. And who else was in that? Oh yeah, Scott Baio. That was his first
Hmm.
movie role on TV,
Well,
and
you
he used
mentioned
to get.
that he saw Patrick Swayze walking down an alley and he was good looking and whatnot. You mean to tell me he didn't think you was good looking?
Who?
The
He
director.
didn't think who?
You
Didn't
didn't
think
he
who
see
was
you?
going.
What he didn't see you walk down an alley and say, "There's a good-looking guy with the with the bag over his head."
Not even remotely. But luckily in that movie, I got to do the unknown comic, and I got to do the myself. So I got to play two parts in that movie. Flip Wilson was in that movie also. Come to think of it.
Flip,
Speaking
Flip,
of, and
Flip Wilson. Yep.
yeah, he was in that movie too, Skate Town USA. I haven't seen it in 100 years, but yeah, that's the amazing. And they did a documentary on Patrick Swayze, and they never mentioned that that was his first movie role, and that Bill Levy is the one who discovered him. Yeah,
And one of the
interesting.
writers is Nick Castle, of course, who's Michael
Nick
Myers.
Castle wrote, yeah, co-wrote it. He what with
He
Mike
was the
Myers?
original Michael Myers in Halloween.
Who was
Nick
Nick
Castle.
Castle?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yep.
oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, he went on to direct several other movies,
Hmm.
like Dennis the Menace, I think, and some other movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
There's a lot of people respond from that little movie. Yeah, but
Brumpalo. You know what? If he's up for it, I'd be more than happy to have Bill Levy on here at some point. If you're still in touch with
sure.
him,
Yeah.
yeah, I would more than happy to
Well, in
have
touch
him on.
with him. Yeah, we ate dinner last night, so yeah, I'm obviously in touch with him. Yeah,
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
Okay, I'll talk to him and see if he's interested, and I'll give him your number, and
Sure.
if he's
No.
interested, you'll
Yeah.
hear from him. Yeah, and he'll tell you the fascinating story about how Patrick Swayze he discovered walking in an alleyway. Yeah, and
Well, I want to hear about
absolute
how
truth.
him discovered you walking down an alleyway.
Well, he no, I don't. I'm not sure how he discovered me. Yeah, I think he went to the market to go shopping, and they were loading me with some groceries, and so he took me home with him, and we've been together ever since. No, yeah, so yeah, all right, I'll ask Bill to give you a call, and I bet you he will. He'll give you a call, and
Yeah.
because he did a bunch of other movies too. He was actually very close friends with James Dean and Elvis
Oh.
Presley when he was a young kid. And he had a TV series very long time ago where he played Tom Sawyer in a very short-lived when he was like 9 years old or something like that. So he's got an interesting story to tell. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
I'll give him your number, and he'll
Sure.
call you.
That'd be great. Yeah. Now, we got to talk about Night Patrol because not only did you star in that, but you were one of the writers of this film as well. And of course, Bill Levy is involved with this as well. So you're keeping
Well,
close
yeah,
ties.
yeah, he co-wrote that with me. We were
Hmm.
actually the original writers, and then that became a soap opera thing. I wasn't happy with the end result of the movie. Could have been so much better, and I read about all that in my book. But basically, it was me and Bill Levy wrote the original script, and then the producer and his wife Jackie Kong, they put their names on it, and they really didn't write shit, but they put their
Oh,
names on it because they produced it. And I didn't know what I was doing in that time, giving them the rights to it. But anyway, the movie could have been much better than it was. But even then, it still made a lot of money for the production company, and for the studio that released it, and became sort of a cult hit. but yeah, that's, and I got my friend Linda in it, Linda Blair, and Pat Paulson and Pat Morita, who was a good friend of mine back then. He passed a long time ago. Yeah, all my friends. Pat Paulson became one of my dear close friends. He was in there. Yeah, so that was an interesting film. But the truth is, I walked away from it in the editing process because I didn't like what they were doing with it, and I never saw a penny. I lost a lot of money in that movie, making that movie, by the way, and the producers ripped me off quite a bit in the long run off that thing.
I'm sorry
But
to
that
hear
just
that.
happens. That just happens in the business, and you know, you work with a lot of great people, and you work with a lot of people that turn out to be jerks, and that's what the people who were the production company turned out to be. So yeah.
You mentioned, of course, Linda Blair is in this, and you've worked with her several times. How did you and Linda Blair meet?
Linda Blair and I first met at my nightclub. Remember, I told you I owned a
Hmm.
nightclub where I went bankrupt. Well, Linda actually came in. I don't know if you ever heard of Lenny Bruce. Lenny
Yes, I
Bruce,
have.
who's a have.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
Lenny Bruce. Yeah, okay. Well, Lenny Bruce had a daughter named Kitty Bruce, and Linda and Kitty Bruce were good friends, and I ended up and Kitty was dating Freddie Prinze at that time, and you remember Freddie Prinze, right?
Yep.
Of course, his son. Yeah. Well, Freddie and Kitty Bruce were dating at that time. They came from New York, and Kitty and Linda were very good friends, and so they all came into my club because Freddie came into my club a few times to work out sets, and so that's where I first met Linda, and we became friends almost immediately. And my sister was a bartender there, and her and Linda became good friends. And I ended up dating because then Freddie Prinze broke up with Kitty, and then I ended up dating Kitty Bruce. And in fact, I've only been to the Academy Awards one time, and was Kitty's date when the movie Lenny was up for an Academy Award with Dustin Hoffman
Dustin Hoffman,
starring
yep.
in it. Yeah, so I ended up going to the Academy Awards back then. So basically, yeah, so it was through Kitty Bruce that I met Linda when Linda couldn't have been more than 14 years old at the time. But my club was also a restaurant, so you could come in underage and you can eat there. You just couldn't drink there. So and like I said, we became very close. She had rough times in her careers. She even lived with me. A lot of people used to think that me and Linda had a relationship over the years because we've been so close, and like I said, she's lived with me, but we've always had strictly a friendly platonic relationship,
Hmm.
and we love each other. We still tell each other we love each other whenever we see each other. So long-term relationship, one of my best friends over the years. I mean, did me so many favors, not only up your alley. She appeared in the movie Night Patrol, and she did plays with me. So we've worked together many times over the years.
I would have been 1 years old when The Exorcist came out, and I've seen it screened a few times. Always gets a reaction out of people, you know. Linda Blair, of course, is one of these staples in horror films, but I like her in a variety of things. I reached out. I don't know. I've been doing this podcast since 2015. I knew Linda was doing a charity involving dog rescue,
She's
because
very into dog,
mhm,
mostly pit bull.
my cat's a rescue, and my folks had a dog, an Australian Shepherd that was a rescue. And my brother and his wife had two ferrets that were rescues. So anyway, I knew Linda Blair had this organization, and I always let people plug their charities on here. Anyway, I remember I reached out, I think it was on her webpage, and I pitched an offer that I would make a donation to her organization for the dogs if she'd come on the show. I don't know who responded, but the person responded, asked me how much I was willing to donate, which I thought was a little inappropriate. And I don't think Linda Blair was the one that said it. I'm not cheap, but I'm not rich, but I'd make it as decent as I could. But I made that offer, and I didn't respond to that person because I was like, okay, they're trying to fish something out of me, which I probably could not afford. But I would have made a nice donation to that cause of hers. But
Okay.
yep, I would have made a nice donation. Anyway, but yeah, animal rescue is something that is part of our family. And
Well, good. Yeah.
yep, but I've donated to those causes before. So, but yeah, I've not met Linda at any of these cons yet. I'm hoping to gain that opportunity. I know one person that did meet her, had good things to say. She did not spit green pea soup on him.
Yeah. 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 Well, she doesn't like to. Well, she did that movie for Logan too. Like
Mhm.
I said, because she was my friend. She really didn't want to do that movie. I actually talked her into doing it for Bob at the time because She doesn't like. She didn't like doing anything that related to The Exorcist. She was sick of it. But when I told her what Bob was going to pay her, I said she should do it, and because she got quite a bit of money to do that, so she stuck to her gun. So, but yeah, she really didn't like much for it, but she still does, the shows every Halloween, various shows because it's a good paycheck for her. Yeah.
She did do Repossessed.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, and that was a good paycheck for her. Yeah,
Well, she got
but
to
she
work
didn't
with
want to
Leslie.
do it.
She got to work with
She
Leslie
didn't want.
Nielsen.
Yeah, another Canadian, another Canuck dude. Yeah, yeah.
Well, he had to be an exorcist, He had to. Just don't call
Yeah,
him
yeah,
Shirley.
yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but no, Linda Blair is great, and of course, up your alley. Bobby Logan spoke very highly of the two of you in this film, and I don't know sure how many movies you and her did together, but um, anyway, talk about working with her and that, and talk about working with Bobby Logan as a director.
Yeah, well, it was his first film, and I produced the movie, so it was a good joint effort. We talked a lot of the shots together, and so in a sense, we really produced and directed it together in a lot of ways. Uh, but it was very interesting because we were dealing. We wrote the script about homeless people because we were both fascinated, but we wanted to put a lot of humor into it. And Bob and I actually, spent a couple nights pretending we were homeless people downtown LA to write the script, to put the script together. So that was interesting too. I mean, the experiences we went through just doing that, pretending, staying in the shelters and living on the streets all night, and it was a lot of it was fairly scary too. And but it led, so all the characters, whether it was Joe the drunk or Fish, the Vietnam veteran who went crazy. All the characters are loosely based on people that we met while we were roaming the streets, pretending we were homeless people. Did he talk to you about that? That's how
Oh,
we wrote the script. Yeah,
nope.
that's how. Yeah, we literally pretended we were homeless people and spend the night living on the streets to write the script. Yeah, that's interesting. He didn't tell you because that had a lot to do with. And interesting enough, we did that movie. I mean, I produced it. I took a loan on my house for I think about 150 grand. This was the fine. Fine. Back in those days, you shoot on film. The cost of 35 millimeter film. That's the most expensive part. Today, you can shoot for nothing. But that would run you. That ran me about 80,000 alone, just the cost of film and getting the film processed. But uh, and then right about the same time, right after we shot that movie, uh, 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 what's his name? He shot us a film about homeless people too.
Oh, Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, yeah,
Yeah,
and
Life Stinks. Yeah.
Life Stinks, and his movie cost 16 million, and his movie didn't do any better than ours. So we did Mars for 150,000, which would have been probably the cost of their catering on their film. and he did his. And if you looked at both movies, you couldn't tell the difference. The one was shot for 100,000, one was shot for 16 million. But that was interesting. Just like Night Patrol was shot before they came out with the movies. What was the cop movies that I'm trying to think now. Was in it the series? They did a whole bunch of them. The police movies with the
Oh,
guy with the
Police
sound effects.
Academy.
Police Academy.
Yep.
Yeah, our movie was shot prior to that. We were out, so so the homeless movie we shot prior to the uh, 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 the one that was shot for 60. Yeah, Life Stinks, and up and Night Patrol was shot before Police Academy. Yeah, but so that's all interesting. But that the way stuff happens, you just never know how it's gonna. I guess ideas might run around in the air somewhere, but yeah. But anyway, it was a couple little things that I did that I had a good time doing. I always enjoyed the process of doing them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good, and I got to do them, and I may do more. It's never too late. I'm working on doing a film right now on a play that I recently did. Yeah, called Seven Story Man. So we'll see what happens with that.
When you worked with Linda Blair, and I know she was trying to shed the Exorcist um, title, but you say she got paid well and she come on set. Some people would phone it in, or some people will take it and go with it and do the character justice. What was it like with watching Linda Blair get into character on these movies? Like, because obviously, she's coming in there and doing this when she's got other passions right now. But when she come on set and do something like up your alley, for example, talk about her getting into that character and putting aside um, the fact that show business really isn't number one to her anymore.
Well, that's not anymore. That was way back then, and she was a professional. She'd been doing it since she was 14 years old. So she was, up front.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up paying a lot of money because I gave her points in it and I gave her a piece of the action. So yeah, she ended up getting money, but when she was doing it, there was no money guaranteed. I didn't know I was going to get a release of it. We had no clue. We were just trying to make a little movie. So that part was interesting. I mean, the fact that she was showing up every day, getting paid zero, and hoping, well, expecting, but she was doing it because she was my good friend. So and we enjoyed working together. A lot of the scenes were me and her together, so it all worked out really good. And so, like I said, we became very tight friends over the years. So that was not a problem for her, showing up and doing a good job because of our friendship that we had
Mm-hmm.
back then.
Well, that was great. She even appeared in Scream very briefly there for a cameo in Wes Craven's film.
Oh, she
Now,
did. I didn't know that.
oh yeah, she played a reporter. Where I work in the hospital now cleaning, I have to bring up, of course, medical school here, stitches. Talk about stitches.
Oh my gosh, somebody brought that. Wait a minute, who did that? That wasn't Bill Levy, was it? No, that wasn't. No, I
Rod
think Bill Levy
Holcomb.
got me involved. That's who directed it?
Rod
Yeah,
Holcomb. Yep.
yeah. And then what was the guy's name that was in it? Yeah, well, yeah, I had to improv some scene playing a gay guy in that movie Stitches, I think. And they just asked me to do the scene, but it wasn't written. I just improv whatever
Mm-hmm.
but, I don't think I've ever seen that movie. Come to think of it, Stitches.
You know,
I don't know.
I once heard Weird Al Yankovic say he's never been able to improvise, but he admires people who can do it. Is improvising easy for you?
No, actually it isn't, and I feel the same way that Weird Al does. I was offered to join many improv groups, but I just steered away from it. Never was interested. But I've been forced into positions where people, put me in a spot. All right, so I can do it, but it was never something that really interested me. And like I mean, some of my good friends became huge. Like Ryan Stiles and Drew Carey. You
Hmm.
know, both comic, from became hugely improvisational, skilled at improvisation, and both Drew Carey and Ryan Stiles used to open for me as in nightclubs, by the way. Uh, and but no, no, to be honest with you, I just never walked that route. And it's funny because the one of the first improvisational groups was the Groundlings,
Hmm.
and a friend of mine named Gary Austin, he actually created that group in the Groundlings, and so many famous people became from the Groundlings. Whether it's Pee Wee Herman started there, uh, a lot of people from Saturday Night Live started at the Groundlings. And Gary actually, he just died, I think, like 2 years ago. But I remember him asking me to join the original Groundlings group, and when he first started it, many years ago, and I said, "Nah, I just don't think I'd be good at that." So no. And even stand-up comic, I never envisioned myself a stand-up comic, because there's certain, and I still don't. I always look at myself as an actor playing a stand-up comic when I work in nightclubs. Whether it's the unknown comic or myself, I'm an actor doing doing that role as a stand-up comic. Where guys like Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld, these guys are comics. They live, breathe, and eat the next joke, and being on the road and doing that.
Hmm. Oh, you froze up there. You froze up. There's
This
so
meeting is being
there we go. We are
Back on.
back on. We had a little glitch there, but that's okay. Um, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about wishful thinking because you got to direct that. What was it like directing a film?
Well, it was fun, and I didn't intend to direct it. If somebody else was supposed to direct it, and then they backed out the last minute,
Hmm.
so then I was stuck, and I said, "Well," and then the guy, I didn't produce that one. I just directed it, and I enjoyed the challenge, but I probably would have been better off having somebody else direct it. It's just a big task to direct yourself, and uh, but like I said, it was fun, and I enjoyed the process. But I ended up directing a lot of plays after that.
Hmm.
Low budget movies just became harder to do for me. So I didn't do as I think I did three of them back then. Up Your Alley, Night Patrol. Uh, but I appeared in a lot of low budget movies. Yeah, so I enjoy directing plays more. I've done a lot of plays. I did a play called Run for Your Wife, a
Hmm.
play called Seven Story Man, and so I enjoyed the theatrical experience also. So I try to, like I said, enjoy to try to do as many things as I can to. And like I said, now I'm getting ready to put on a Las Vegas review, so I'm
Hmm.
I'm working on that right now. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any social media like web pages or charities that you want to plug on here before we close off?
Well, I do have, if anybody's interested in my books, I have books, DVDs, films, comedy shows, all on therealunknowncomic.com. So if you go to therealunknowncomic.com, you can have access to all that crazy stuff that I did over the years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate so much you taking the time to come on here, and a special thanks to Bobby
Great.
Logan for connecting
Okay.
us. And
Yes.
yes, I'm open to
And,
having
and
Bill on here, make that connection for me. And
well,
absolutely. Yeah. Before I let you go, would you
okay. Well,
mind doing a plug for my show?
what do you want me to do?
Just state your name and that you're the unknown comic and that you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Okay. Hey, this is, if you don't believe me, ask me, the Unknown Comic, and I'm telling you to watch Greg
Gilbert.
Gilbert. I do that. Well, you thought I didn't know that? Greg Gilbert's podcast every chance you get. Okay, he's a really good friend of mine. So don't forget to watch Bill Gilbert. Is it Bill?
Greg.
I know. I was just kidding you. Don't forget to watch Greg Gilbert's podcast. Okay, from the Unknown Comic. All right. Stay happy, stay crazy, stay healthy, and stay silly.
God bless you. Thank you so much. And it's nice we
Everybody,
get a little New Brunswick connection.
yeah, crazy, weird. All right. Take care
Take
and
care.
have fun.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.